Liz. Welcome back to my sewing room for a continuation of my quilt binding series. In this episode, I'll show you how to make continuous strip binding. This is my favorite method for finishing quilts and larger projects. Basically, you'll create a tube of fabric with overhanging ends that allow you to cut out your binding in one long spiraling piece. The process is a little bit complicated, but once you master it, you'll be able to make a pile of binding. The first thing you need to do is measure the perimeter of your project to see how much fabric you will require. Then, use the estimated binding length plus a few extra inches to see what size square you should cut. Once you've found the magic number, cut out a piece of fabric to that exact size. Then fold opposite tips together, make a fold, and line the folded edge up with the grid on your cutting mat. Then bring the tips down so they meet the midpoint of the hypotenuse. Fold that again, make sure both edges are parallel, and then your cutting line will go from the tips to the midpoint of the new folded edge. Make your cut, and then you have two identical triangles. Lay the triangles on top of one another with the tips hanging down. I like to overlap the grain and the cross grain on this part, so one of your pieces should be a little bit stretchy and the other one should be a bit stiffer. The other thing you want to make sure to do is make a little bit of the triangle extend out past the edge on both sides. This will accommodate your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pin your pieces together and then sew along the upper edge using a small straight stitch. The next thing you need to do is make a fabric tube by wrapping the tips around. On the left side, you will leave an overhang that equals the width of your binding plus an extra 1/4 inch for the seam allowance. This is critical. If you don't allow for the seam, you won't be able to create the continuous strips. So if I want to create 2 1/4 inch binding, I will measure a 2 1/2 inch overhang, mark that point, and then line that up with the nearest seam allowance. Pin that in place, and then continue lining up the raw edges until you reach the other overhang. Then you will stitch along this line to create the tube. Once your tube is ready, press the seam allowances so they lay flat and begin marking off 2 1/4 inch strips starting at the left edge. Each line should be at a slight angle, and you want to keep all of the lines parallel with the outside edge. Don't try to make the lines perpendicular or you will cancel out the spiraling effect. Continue marking all the way across your tube, then flip it over, adjust the fold, and then you can continue the lines and make sure that they meet up. Once you've marked all the lines, all you need to do is cut out your strips. For this part, I like to stick my arm through the tube so I don't accidentally cut the other layer of fabric. You just take the scissors and you'll follow the lines that you've marked all the way around. As you go, can just gently spiral the fabric and keep going. Once all of your strips are cut out, you can take them to the ironing board, and there you just want to press open all these little seam allowances, fold the strip in half, and then press that to make the fold permanent. If you aren't using your binding right away, you can wrap it around a piece of cardboard or plastic and just pin it in place. This will help keep your binding nice and organized until you're ready to use it. Check out my other videos to see how to attach the binding and make perfectly mitered corners. That's all. Thanks for watching.